Hi, hello everyone. You're welcome to today's developer session. Um, if this is your first time here, I'll say you're welcome. And if you've been here before, I'll say you're welcome again. So my name is Kemi Ubi. I am a technical product specialist at Mono. I work with the partner integrations and development team. And today we are hosting a session talking about the Mono Lookup APIs. We're taking you through how to build a robust verification process with the Mono Lookup APIs. But before I go any further, get started, I would like you to introduce yourself in the chat box. You can tell us your name, where you're joining us from, what you do, what you're currently building, just to create a sense of community and network, I guess. Um, Also, you can use the chat box for that. Just put the details in the chat box. Then, if you have questions as we go through the session, we know that some people might have questions. You can use the questions tab in the interface. So right there, there's the chat box and then there's the questions tab. So use the questions tab to answer to ask your questions. And some of our colleagues will be available to answer them for you right there and then. And if they aren't able to answer you, then we will take your questions at the end of the session. Please pay attention, be present, ask your questions also, and also interesting session with us. Thank you. So I'll get started by walking you through today's program. We'll start with an introduction to Mono. We'll tell you who Mono is, what Mono does, why we are here. We'll also walk you through an introduction to the Mono Lookup API suite. We'll tell you the relevance of the identity verification system, how Mono Lookup API is relevant to user onboarding in KYC and KYB situations. Then we'll go on to show you our MVP use case app we have built for this session called Very10, how to integrate the Mono Lookup API, some best practices, and we'll walk you through the app we built in the code base. So after which we'll have a workshop recap and then we'll take your questions and give you some answers. So what is Mono or who is Mono? Mono is on a mission to power the digital economy of Africa. What we do is we build infrastructure and tools for developers and innovative businesses in Africa to build next generation financial products. We were founded in 2020. We have investors like Y Combinator, Country Capital, Tiger Global, and much more. So far, we've linked 4 million, over 4 million accounts, and we've retrieved over 700 million financial data. Our API suites are divided into three boxes we call Connect, Direct Pay, and Lookup. So for Connect is mainly used to secure financial data of users, so like customers' transactions, statements, income, and identity data. For direct pay is used to collect direct bank payments into your web or mobile apps, no card, no risks, no chargebacks to your business. And for the focal point of today's discussion, lookup is used to securely verify identity information of users and businesses. So more about lookup or telling you the advantages of lookup. With the lookup API, you get data integrity. You are sure that you are retrieving the most accurate and most recent information about the users because this information is from source. Also, it helps to streamline your verification processes, or will I say onboarding processes, because it is less strenuous, it is easier to scale, and it reduces churn. Also, the data is retrieved with speed and it is stable because the data is retrieved via API, so you are able to get this information within a matter of minutes. And of course, we use bank level security protocols and encryption, so you are sure that the data that you are getting is safe without a data breach for your users. Now, integrating Mono Lookup, our lookups are divided into two categories. We have the KYC relevant endpoints and KYB relevant endpoints. Now, These KYC relevant endpoints, we can say they are categorically meant for individuals or verifying information of individuals. So under this, we have endpoints like NIN, driver's license, international passport, and much more. I'll be telling you more about this later on. For KYB relevant endpoints, we have endpoints like the CAC endpoint, tax identification number endpoint. Now for KYB, this is endpoint that is mainly for businesses, that is retrieving and verifying information of businesses. Now, let's talk more about the KYC relevant endpoint or the KYC endpoint. We start with the address verification endpoint. Our address verification endpoint simply uses the electricity meter number of the house and the house address to verify the identity of or verify the location of a person's address. So are able to verify that this address is actually valid and the person actually lives there by using the electricity meter number and the address. You Also, we have the NIN endpoint, and this is a lookup service that allows you to verify or get comprehensive information about your user using their national identification verification and national identification number. Sorry, or you use the virtual national identification number. Whichever way, both works and both gives you the same information or data about the user. Then we have the bank verification number, and all you have to do is to input the user's bank verification number, verify this using an OTP, and you're able to get information about the users through their BVN. Then we have the international passport lookup. With this, you can verify that the passport of your user is valid and it is up to date. The same goes for the driver's license, where you simply use the driver's license number to verify information or get more information about your users. For the KYB relevant endpoint, we have the tax identification number. Now, this enables you to retrieve critical information about a business simply using their tax identification number. This information can be cross-referenced with other information that you maybe say manually retrieve from the user by making so you're able to make sure that okay, the information that they are sharing with you is valid. Now, the CAC endpoint is divided into two, where we have the lookup a business or a company endpoint, and we have the retrieve shareholder information endpoint. For retrieving a shareholder information, this takes it like a step further. But for lookup a business, all you need to do is to input the user's the business name or the business RC number, then you can retrieve information about the business. But when you go further to retrieve shareholders information, you can get like details about each and every shareholder of the company. And this becomes very relevant or useful for use cases where you have to do due diligence or just verify each and every information of the, like say, shareholders of a business before you give them any sort of funding or something. So now I will be handing over to my colleague who will be walking you through our use case and demo for today's session. So King will taking over from here.
All right. Thank you very much, KU. I think that was a very insightful presentation. So at this point, I'll be taking over and I'll be sharing more on a an interesting use case and also demoing an MVP app that we built internally called Veritain. Veritain is a very simple application that showcases how Mono Lookup APIs can be implemented into your own product. Veritain is a simple application that serves as a rental marketplace for businesses and also individuals to set up properties that they want to upload, and this will allow users to rent, buy, and even discover properties that they would like to acquire. Part of the features of this simple MVP app includes property listing, property viewing, property rentals, and also property purchase. In the next few minutes, I'll be showing us how this Veritain app works. But looking at what I have right here, it's very important to note that the app allows users and businesses to register and submit KYC and KYB documents for onboarding. So please note that all API calls have been implemented in this simple application, and they are being made in real time to verify the authenticity of all documents being provided by either a business and a user. This Veriton app also has an analytic tool that generates reports for the admins on verified clients, businesses, which would aid in making informed decision making processes and compliance. And lastly, Veriton has notification services to alert users and businesses about their own identity verification status so that they're kept in the loop on the activation process for their already set up account. Before proceeding to be able to test out Veritain, it's very important to set up a Mono account. So if you've not done so, you'll need to head over to mono.co/sign up, and you'll be able to provide necessary credentials that you have. You can also complete compliance and invite team members from your operations team, product team that you know will be very important for the integration process. So once your account has been fully set up and it's been approved, you can now proceed to create a Mono application. So a Mono application is an entity that allows you to make use of our Mono APIs, be it for lookup, for payments, or other API products. So once you have created a Mono application, you have access to your secret key, and you can also add webhook for monitoring of events for other Mono APIs that you'll be implementing. So once you have fully created an app, you can proceed to round up with your technical integration. So this means you would have implemented the Mono Lookup APIs with either our libraries that we have built, or you can hard code this directly into your source code with our API documentation and also other support resources. So once you have wrapped up with your integration, you can go ahead to test end to end to see how this experience would be on the API level and also on the user level. Speaking of the integration best practices, we have done well to put down best approaches that we think would be very important to your integration process. So the first of this list is securing your API keys. So please understand that your Mono secret key is very, very sensitive information, and you should try as much as possible to save these keys directly to environment files, or you can use third-party platforms to secure your keys proactively. Once you have saved your API keys, make sure to validate all user inputs that would be coming into your system. When you validate this user inputs, it will save you the stress of multiple errors being made on the API. So imagine a user trying to game a platform and is providing random details just to see how your platform would look like. So when you try to validate this information, both on your front end and on your back end, you save yourself a whole lot of headache. And this way, your calls to Mono's APIs won't be affected. So next on our best approach list, please try to implement throttling mechanisms to prevent excessive API calls within a given time frame. This would definitely ensure that our systems and also your system does not get overwhelmed with multiple lookup calls. Next on the list, we have logging and monitoring. So making use of open source tools allows you to comprehensively log and monitor your systems. You'll be able to know when errors are being experienced on your platform. But not to worry, on our Mono dashboard, we have our audit logs that also shares with you errors when experienced. Next, it's very important to test, and test. So in your staging environment, you can try to test with Mono's sandbox credentials, so you can interact and see how this simulated data would look like before going ahead to deploy in production. So once you have tested different scenarios, including both successful errors and failures, you should be able to go live in production in good time. So right now, you can go ahead to clone this GitHub repository on my screen, github.com/kingkenway/Veritain. So once you have cloned this repository in your favorite ID, you should be able to run npm install. So, this would make an attempt to install all defined packages in a package.json file. Next, you see an example.env file that contains the expected keys and variables. So once this has been updated, quickly head over to run npm run start, and you have the very 10 MVP app running in your browser. So in the next few minutes, I'll be demoing to you this very 10 app. But in the meantime, you can head over to very10.onrender.com and you can test out this application in real time to see how we have implemented the Mono Lookup APIs on the platform. So what you should expect in the next few minutes is that we're going to be going through a simple user registration process for both an individual and a business. Next, we will make an attempt to verify either a user or a business with the core Mono Lookup APIs, that is BVN, NIN, driver's license, and also AC verification for both users and businesses. And you should also expect us to make use of our house address verification APIs for property owners to verify that they actually own a property. Adding to this list as well, you'll be able to see how users get notifications to alert users and businesses uh, pending their current verification status to ensure that they're being kept in the loop. Lastly, we have an admin dashboard that helps admins of the Veritem platform to manage users' businesses and also review, activate, or delete properties. So please note that Veritem app is a simple proof of concept application. It's open source, you can clone it, and you can always test out as you would like. So at this point, I'll be going ahead to share my browser. So right now I have the Veriton app running in my local machine, and we have the home page that shows current properties already been listed on the platform. So right now I'll go ahead to register a new account. I'll provide the necessary information to proceed with this page. So here I'll be proceeding with a user type of individual. So you would see how the individual process works, and would also go ahead to create a new account later on to see how the verification process works for a business. So right now the registration process is successful. I'm gonna have to provide my basic compliance or identity information. So on the BVN verification stage, I have to provide my BVN and my date of birth as seen on my BVN record. So right now we're currently in sandbox environment, and I would head over to my API documentation to get sandbox credentials for my BVN ID. So our API documentation is publicly accessible on the web, and you can also take a look at this page to get any sandbox credential that you would need to help facilitate tests on your end. So I'll quickly grab my BVN ID and submit this. So here on my date of birth field, if I proceed to select any random date, I'll get an error saying that the provided date of birth does not align with what is being registered with NABS. This is very, very important to ensure that BVN being supplied is actually being owned by the user. So I'll provide this BVN again, and I'll provide the actual date of birth value, which is 20th October, year 2000. So I'll go ahead to submit. Okay, let me take that again. So it's 22nd, sorry, not 20th. The 22nd of October, year 2000. So yeah, under the hood, a quick verification was being made, and it was able to validate with our BVN API that this BVN actually belongs to the user. This way, with it being persisted on your own end, you can further save this data for future analysis on the BVN record. So here I'm on the second stage of compliance, where I have to provide a KYC document. So as a user, I can decide to provide my NIN information. I can also decide to provide my driver's license information. And lastly, I can also provide my international passport. So each of these identity types are being wired to each of Mono's lookup APIs. So for NIN, our NIN API requires an NIN value. For driver's license API, it requires the license number, date of birth, first name and last name. And lastly, for international passport for user, uh, it requires the passport number and user's last name. So for the sake of this demo, I'll be proceeding with international passport verification. So I'll head back to my documentation to get the necessary credentials being needed. So we have international passport. Okay, that's in right here. We'll grab this as well. So yeah, I'll have to upload a document so that the admin can further use as evidence that this identity information being provided actually belongs to this user on a tier 2 basis. I'm going to upload a document right now and I'll submit KYC. So yeah, we can see that verification is pending, waiting for approval. But however, since we submitted our BVN and it's been verified, we can still go ahead to upload properties, but each property would show that this uploader was not verified. So I'll head over to our home page to add property. So in adding properties, I can provide necessary information here. Let me call this 4-bedroom duplex. Okay, so I've provided necessary property information. And there's this interesting field here that says, does this property belong to you? If I select the drop down and pick no, I can proceed and add property, which is not a problem. But if I select yes, uh, I need to verify that I actually own this property. So by keying in the meter number and the exact house address, our address verification API, our house address verification API would take these parameters, run a quick verification, and will return a couple of API response values indicating how valid this information is. So this includes is verified as a Boolean field to be true or false, and we also return a confidence level between 1 and 100 that will allow you create a decision mechanism on how you want to allow users to verify such properties. So I'll click on yes, and I'll provide the basic information needed. So all sandbox information can be found on our API docs in my URL. So I'll quickly grab this on my house address, and I'll go ahead to add property. If you provide in wrong property information, you will get an error saying this is being invalid. I believe you can also test this on your end and you can get to see how this error experience looks like. So yeah, when I scroll down, we can see this property I just added, located in Ibadan, a 4-bedroom duplex. And when I click to view details, we can see ownership saying ownership has been verified. This is because I was able to provide necessary information for the house address verification API. And we have a status saying not verified, meaning that the person who uploaded this document has not been verified yet on the tier 2 level. So right now we're done with the first phase of our demo, that is setting up an account with a individual account. We're going to proceed to set up an account that is belongs to a business. So I've logged out and I'm going to register again. This time around, I'll create a new email address. And I'll select user type as business. hit on register. So yeah, as a business, I still need to provide my BVN record, of course, to know who this person is exactly. It's still the same parameters as used earlier for the individual setup. So this process is successful, and if you noticed, I'm being asked to provide business information this time around, since Veritain discovered that I'm actually a business since I selected that property earlier on the registration page. So I have to provide a business name and then to provide an RC number. If I provide invalid credentials, we'll get an error saying that the data being provided is invalid. Please try again. And for the sake of compliance, I would have to upload a document. All right, I'll hit on submit KYB document. And yeah, so I think on this case, because we're able to verify, I think both the BVN and also the CSC records as a business, verification here is complete. But still, the admin will still need to look at the document being submitted as a further review before then granting them verification as a real property or business entity. So now I'll proceed to add property. So I can still proceed to provide the information I provided earlier on the individual level, and a I will also get the property being listed on my homepage. So this brings me to the end of my browser demonstration on Veritain. Before I go ahead to share the code logic and setup on my favorite code editor, I would walk us through the process of setting up an application, as I mentioned earlier on integration steps in my presentation. So here, we're on the Mono dashboard. Once you have signed up and you have provided compliance information and you're activated, you can do well to open the apps link and create an app. So this app name can be any value that represents your business entity. So I'll call this very. You can use it as display name. On your end, you can add a logo if you would like, so you can easily identify your apps by just the logo on the apps page. So on the products drop down, I will click on lookup, since we're making use of lookup in this context. On my industry, I will proceed with financial services. So yeah, my app is created. We have it as very. And please note, for every app being created on the Mono dashboard, it will have a sandbox mode being set by default. So with this, you have access to your test secret key. With these keys, you can instantly make API calls in sandbox environment. Adding to your dashboard experience, you can go ahead to edit this application later if you think you need to make some minor updates. Here, all the total API calls being made on your end will be recorded here. You have your app ID, and finally, you can go ahead to switch this application live. So by switching this to live, your test keys will switch to live keys. But please take note, if you switch your keys from sandbox to live, you won't be able to use your test keys at that point in time. So what we advise is you can create two separate applications. One will serve for testing purposes, and have another application that will serve for production purposes to prevent any issues when someone mistakenly switches an app directly on your dashboard. Last but not the least, for other product aside lookup, you can proceed to add a webhook that would notify you of real-time updates being noticed on your platform. Adding to this experience, you can send a test webhook event whereby once you save this webhook, you get a test webhook payload that would be sent to your servers. So in your audit logs, you'll be able to see how well this webhook was being handled with either a 200, 400, or 500 error. Before I proceed, please take note that all lookup API calls will be charged directly to your Mono wallet. So once you have compliance all set up on your Mono wallet or your Mono dashboard, you can head over to this more drop down and click on wallet. So here you have your wallet balance, and you can always top up your wallets so that API calls can be made seamlessly and you'll be charged directly to your wallet balance. So right now I'll be heading over to my source, to my favorite code editor, which is VS Code. So yeah, please take notes that um, Veritone was built with Node.js Express, and we made use of EJS and Bootstrap on the front end. And finally, we made use of MongoDB as our database. So this is, we have the user controller file that is responsible for handling all the Mono Lookup verification as you saw earlier on the Veritone MVP app. So I'll just collapse my sidebar here so we can have more visibility. Let me zoom in a bit. So I'm going to start with how we handled BVN lookup. So here you can see I have my API being implemented. So here we're receiving the request from the front end, and we try and catch the API request being made in the try block. So this is the URL being used for the BVN lookup, and we pass the BVN retrieved from the front end in the body. Here you can see my secret key being set as an environment variable as best practices. Right now, when we get a successful response, remember earlier that we collected the date of birth information from a user. So once we get this response from as a successful JSON from Mono, we check if the date of birth being received on the front end matches the date of birth being received from Mono. If this does not match, we will send an error back to the front end so that the user can act accordingly and provide necessary information. Else, we believe that this user is a fraudulent person and the request will be rejected. Now, if there's a match, we go ahead to save this database and we redirect the user to now provide KYC information. So here, based on the models that we use, we're just setting BVN verify to be true, and we also save a BVN to the MongoDB. If there's any error from servers, we try to catch that as well and return the error message to the user so they'll know the next line of action to take. Moving further from this, I'll be going over to share how we're able to verify the Java's license, NIN, and also international passport. Yeah, so but before I go ahead, I want you to take note of something here. So this is a drop down signifying each of these options that the user selects. So take note, we have NIN, we have driver license, and we have international passports, which is just passport. I'm going to go back to my API documentation so we can view this in a much clearer approach. Just 1 second. Let me quickly open that up. So here, this is international passport lookup URL in clear view. You've noticed the base URL is api.mono.com/v3/lookup. You will also notice on the Java's license lookup is the same base URL. And lastly, on the NIN API, we have the same base URL. And take note, each of them has its own responding URL path. So this is NIN, this is just driver license, and this is international passport lookup, just passport. So going back to my code, this has been coded as a value dropdown. So why I'm sharing this information is that with this kind of approach, we only have just a template here. So depending on what we receive from the front end, we just key that in right in the URL. So since they already have, the same base URL, we're just passing that like from the front end directly to the URL. So this way, we don't need to code this API 3 times. We don't need to implement the each of these APIs one by one. We just have a template that gets the desired document type, key it in as a lookup, and then we have this all abstracted into the code. So going over from this first, we get the document from the user on the front end. So once we get that information, we key this in, and then we get our desired response. If it's successful verification, we go ahead to direct you to the verification status, so you know the current your current compliance stage. Yeah. So also take note. If you remember, when we signed up with a business account, what happened on the KYC page was we've been asked to provide company information. So with that company information, what is basically happening here is on the front end, we detect, first of all, if the user account is a business. So if it's a business, we render this information to request from the customer, else we render this information from the individual. So we have a field that from the front end, which is hidden, that lets us know if it is a business being verified or an individual. So we have this lookup field being passed, and it's also sent to the back end. So we make a quick check that if this is a lookup, we perform a lookup request. So remember, we got the RC number of that use company, and we make a quick check on the CSC lookup. So when we find out that there is a record, we get the business name that the user provided on the front end, and we make a quick check. If this business name received from the user matches what we actually find on the records, we allow this to proceed. Else, we send an error message saying the business name that you provide, the house number that you provided, and the BVN name and the business name that we found is invalid. So this way, a business will know the next line of action to take. So and in this stage here, once it's successful, we save the user status, and then you can see we save the URL from the image being provided from the customer or business, so that for future analysis, the admins can do more checks on who that business is exactly, and then we redirect to the verification status page. So in a nutshell, we first of all check if this is a business lookup. So if it is, we run this request. Else, we make an attempt to look up those 3 parameters being sent from the front end. So if it is either NIN, passport, or driver's license, the API calls have been abstracted to just one, and they're being called effectively. So that brings us to the end of our code demonstration. But before then, I would like to share with you that we have concise integration guides for each of these APIs. So you can head over to our API documentation, and we have detailed integration guides that would allow you to seamlessly integrate each of these APIs on your platform. We also have the API reference that allows you to also test and get feedback accordingly. So we're going to do a quick recap of what we have learned so far. We've been able to learn what Mono Lookup APIs are. I'm sure we have learned quite a lot from this knowledge sharing. We've been able to also learn how these Mono Lookup APIs work. So speaking to identity verification, speaking to house address verification, speaking to CSE, I've been able to know what is being needed in each request, and then I believe this information will help us with implementing each of the APIs on your own end. Also, we've been able to learn the different APIs that we have seen and the different verification types, as Keyus shared earlier. Lastly, we're able to see a live demonstration of the Veriten app in real time on my local machine. Remember, you can also head over to veriten.onrender.com to test this right now in a live production server. And lastly, we've been able to see best practices that will aid you in integrating these APIs on your own platform. So right now we're going to be taking questions and answers. So please do well to use the questions tab in your bottom right. You can use that to raise any questions, and we're going to do our best to answer your questions as best as we can.
Thank you for that very informative session, King. And thank you all for paying attention so far. I hope you were, anyways. So right now we'll be taking questions. So if you have any question, now would be a good time to, would I say, ask your questions. And use the questions tab to ask your questions. Anything not clear, anything you'd like to know about integrating the Mono APIs.
Don't be shy if you have questions. You can ask as much questions as you can. Of course, we'll try our best to provide concise answers as best as we can.
So even though the question has been asked privately, King, so someone was asking, how does the address verification take? Does it work for business customers? I'm guessing in this case, person means end users. So you can,
So yeah, I think that's a very good question. I don't mind taking that over again. So take note that we require two parameters to run a successful house address verification. So this includes the meter number and the address. So our data science and machine learning engineering team have built models that allows us to make use of our third-party provider to make confirmed decisions on the content level being received from our models. So this is why if you check the API reference on our API docs, we've returned to you the house address that we send to you the house address that we actually think is accurate, plus the confidence level, which ranges between 1 and 100. So depending on the model, if the model predict that this isn't um, as accurate as possible, it provides this as a confidence level field. So if it's like 40 or 49, we return a verified Boolean field as false. Else, if it's something higher than 50, return to a verified level as true. So you can use that confidence level as a parameter to tweak your systems on how um, you want to verify users and businesses on your platform. I hope this provides more context and more clarity to your question, um, Ibrahim.
thank you very much, King. So I'll be sharing another question and I'll just answer this question. So someone is asking, does the user get any notification if a verification is done using their details? So each and every of our lookup endpoints have different ways it is verified. But the only one that, let's say, requires or gives the user any form of notification when their information is trying to be verified is the BVN. And that's because of, would I say, the regulations from the regulating body, CBN, and all the rest. So it is required that if you are going to retrieve information from a user BVN, it has to be verified via OTP um, in different ways, phone number or email address or something. So that's the only one where the user gets notified because the user has to authenticate the process with an OTP before the data is then shared with you. Because we try to make sure that we maintain all standards of as a security protocol as required by the regulating bodies in Nigeria. So for others, let's say driver's license or international passport, you simply are able to retrieve the information by consent because the user explicitly or implicitly consents by giving you that information to verify. That's the identification number, the NIN identification number, or the driver's license number. That's their implicit, would I say, consent to like retrieve that information. So there's no need to notify them. But for BVN, there's a notification that is sent to the user. So I hope I'm able to I'm able to answer your question. So next question. Someone is asking how much does it cost to use the Mono Lookup? So each of the lookup endpoints have different prices. So what I'm going to do is to drop a link to our pricing for the Mono Lookup suite in the chat room so that everyone can see, or anyone that's interested can see the pricing. So are there
And
any other questions?
yeah, so we're going to share with you our Slack community invite link. So you can always join our community and ask more questions around anything in general. It can be relating to Mono, regarding Mono integrations, or if there's any feedback you would need on products you're developing, we would do well to provide to you the best support. I think the link will be coming in the next few seconds. So if you still have questions, please don't hesitate to share. I would respond.
So, if you're interested in joining our developer community, I have dropped a link to join the Slack community where we engage our developer community with activities in the week. And also, if you have questions, that would be a good place or a good way to reach us regarding your integration processes. And we are always available and happy to help. Since there are no more questions, I can say that we have come to the end of this session. We hope you found it very helpful. Thank you for joining. You will also receive a replay of the event, so you can find it on YouTube in a few days. Mono has a YouTube account, so you can just check our YouTube account and you can see the replay of this session in case you want to check for other information or something that you might have missed. Again, we'd like to say thank you very much for joining, taking the time to be here. We appreciate you. Um, I wish you a very wonderful day, rest of the day ahead.
Cheers, everyone.